Have you ever heard a comment that was so simplistically ignorant that it left you dumbfounded because you couldn't believe what you were hearing? That's kind of what I want to get into, so let's get to it. How you doing, guys? Been working some insane hours over the last 2 months. Don't really get too much time off these days. Anyways, it was Sunday last week. I can't recall what day it was, but I had just gotten finished with a 15-hour shift, so I came home. Now, what I'd like to do is unwind after work, so I like to sit outside. So after work, I'm sitting outside and got a notification on my phone. Asher was having a live stream, which kind of surprised me. For anybody who doesn't know, Asher had just had surgery last week, and this was only a few days after that. So I said, okay, this is probably about the documentary, so I've been waiting for information on it to begin with, so I started watching it. Well, it was going for a while, and I have this nosy neighbor. Whenever he sees me outside, he automatically thinks I'm up for conversation, even though I'm focused on my device. Well, anyways, I hear, "What you doing?" Just watching a live stream. I figured he'd take the hint and walk off, but no, it didn't work out that way. Well, I'm sitting there trying to give him the hint that I'm focused on what's going on. He plops his fat ass down in the chair. He starts asking me about the live stream. I says, okay. So I start telling him about the documentary. And he's sitting there. I could tell everything I was saying was going over his head. Not very bright at all. Well, he starts talking and talking and talking. And now, obviously, I'm trying to watch the live stream. And finally, I realized he's not going away. So I had to excuse myself from the live stream. I figured I'd catch the rest of it later. And I cut out and turned it off. And he starts going on, asking about this documentary. Now, we had talked about my YouTube channel once before. And most of what I was saying kind of bounced off because he's got the IQ of a block of wood. Then he starts talking about the documentary, and he says, well, is it going to be a sham, or is it going to be worth it? And I says, no, I think it'll hit the nail right on the head. Well, he starts asking, well, who else is involved? And I says, to be honest with you, I really don't know. And he says, well, how much money will they be making from this? I stopped, and I'm like, dude, it's a documentary. It's not about money. Well, that's a waste of time. I wouldn't do it unless I was getting paid. And I said, well, dude, nobody asked you to do it. So I started fumbling with my phone again because I figured the conversation's over. And he kept going and going and kept on talking. He finally says, if you guys left the Jehovah's Witnesses alone, don't you think they'd just go away? I was totally perplexed. I said, it's not just about them going away. And I started explaining the situation with the child abuse and all that. And it just was bouncing off his head. And I finally, I'm wasting my time even in explaining this to him because, frankly, he didn't care. So I wanted to cut the conversation short because he was annoyed. I mean, when I get tired like this and I'm working around the clock, I get very irritable very easily. More often than not, most of the time, comments like that bounce off of me and I don't pay any attention, but I wanted him to go. I says, do you have any idea what it must be like for a college graduate to sit in on a third grade math class? And he says, how's that? Your conversation. Well, he got all huffy and he stormed off. And I'm like, good. But he ruined my night, so I ruined his. But I have known several people like this in my entire life, and I realized that after that conversation, I was still angry about it. And I says, you got to consider where this came from. He's very simple-minded. It would have been a waste of time to explain anything to him because his realm of understanding was minute. And it took me a couple of days to cool off from that, and I kind of avoid conversation with him since then. I've known about 3 or 4 people like this in my lifetime. And it dawned on me that this is narcissistic behavior that most people don't really talk about. Now, I've noticed in the number of people that I've known just like this idiot, they're generally not very self-confident. Even though they try and put forward that they're self-confident, they try to act superior in their conversation. They try to put on an air of superiority, but the truth is they feel quite inferior. And this is in every single case and every person I've noticed like this. I have noticed, basically, because this is not the first run-in I've had with this person, his conversation generally is the same. And I notice how drained I feel afterwards, basically because all of his conversation is on a negative undertone. It also is very redundant. I noticed after one or two conversations with this person, you've pretty much heard everything. He will talk about the same things over and over and over, which annoys the hell out of me. I mean, when you hear it once, it's not going to change. The other thing is the bashing. They will pretty much bash everybody around them. Now, if this narcissistic type of person has targeted you, they will come give you the feeling that they're a friend of yours. However, there is something about you that they do not like. And they will basically have to shoot down whatever you're doing, wherever your interests are. Now, this idiot does not have a clue what it is that I do on YouTube. He doesn't have a clue what the XJW community is. When I explained to them about Watchtower, most of that went right over his head. So he basically will shoot it down. Why? Because it's something I'm into. The only way these people can gain any type of superior feelings is by shooting you down. They also have another tactic. They will be very insulting under the guise of humor. They'll always make insulting comments and then laugh at it and expect you to laugh along with it. Basically because they're very miserable, unhappy people. They generally don't have a whole lot going on. Now, I've noticed conversation like this. They will make everything around them a little bit better than it actually is. Especially if they talk about work. They will make it seem like their job is very important. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, how is your career as a greeter at Walmart? But like I said, it's always the same things over and over and over. Now, in every single case, these narcissistic people, the only way they can feel good about themselves is to take you apart and take you down, whether it be your appearance, whether it be your interest. And the thing is, that will only last for a short time before they start sinking again. I love it when they ask for advice and they will dump their problems on you and you realize just how childish their problems are. I've made it clear that there are just some people that it's a waste of time talking to, and I realize that no matter where this guy goes or what he talks about, nothing I can say is going to land because you're going to shoot it down because whatever it is that I'm doing bothers you. I knew a JW just like this. And for 10 years, whatever it was I was doing, he would shoot it down. And he was an extremely negative person. He was very draining to be around. And he was always bashing other people. Now, with these people, you take away the bashing, you take away the redundant conversation, and they basically have nothing. Once you've had one of their conversations, that's all you are ever going to hear. It's best not to engage in any conversation. Give it idle chit-chat if you have to. Hi, bye, how's the weather, and blah, 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 and just keep on going. Because they're very dangerous people. Because you're not realizing that every time they're talking to you, they're taking you down just that much more. And I've noticed a lot of times I would be in a very foul mood afterwards. And when I was younger, I wasn't sure why. But it was because of these people. This is how they feed off, and this is how they gain their superior feelings, is by shooting you down. Anyways, that's something that happened last week, and I opted to hold off on doing a video on it. But I definitely wanted to get it out there in case you know a person like this. You can always see them coming. And it gets to the point where they're coming and you go, oh no, not again. Because their conversations never end. they will keep going and going, and they just don't know when enough is enough. The funny thing is, not only will they talk about what's in their realm, because they're very self-centered. All they will do is talk about what interests them. They'll talk about themselves. But on those occasions, when you talk about something you're into or your interest, they will somehow reel that and they will hijack your conversation and completely take it over to the insulting point. Because even though you're getting irritated, they don't know when to stop. And deep down inside, that's what they want to do. They want to ruin your day. Why? Because their day is probably already sucked. Their days always sucked. They're miserable, unhappy, go-nowhere people. And the only way they can feel better about themselves is by taking you down. As far as this fat bastard, the first 2 conversations I had with him pretty much told me everything about him and all I needed to know. Because he's got the IQ of a block of wood, and conversation with him is not conversation. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to get that out there. I hope you have a good day. I will be talking to you soon.